One of the Fringe Festival's top shows of the summer is back for a one-week-only encore performance. Dwayne Forrest is the playwright and performer of Bob Marley, How Reggae Changed the World. And as I mentioned, he's back in Winnipeg for a series of sellout shows. Following up a series of sellout shows in the summer, so you can still get in the winter here. He joined Up to Speed host Faith Fundell to talk all about it.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Welcome back to Winnipeg. What did you think when you were asked to bring the show back to the city?
Oh, I was really excited. I loved my time during the Fringe here.
Was it an easy yes for you?
Easy. Well, until I figured out the time of year.
It's a little bit cold. How are you managing the winter so far? You happened to come at the time that we had our first big snowfall.
Yes. It's actually beautiful when it snows. It really is. I was prepared. So I bought some hand warmers and electric socks.
Yep.
And so I'm good. I'm feeling good.
You're much more prepared than some Winnipeggers, just to let you know. Take us back to the show here. What is Bob Marley, How Reggae Changed the World about?
It's really about how Bob Marley reconnected me to my culture and like just the pride of being Jamaican and having Jamaican roots, and also our legacy. Our roots before Jamaica and the legacy of slavery. Yeah.
Why this particular show? What was it about? Which part of Bob Marley you'd tell? What's the story there?
Yeah, well, my mom and dad, they always had that music playing in the house. My mom really, and we listen to the music, and Bob Marley's music feels so good. You don't even need to know the English or hear what he's saying. You just feel good when you're listening to it. And I noticed over the years that there's a much deeper message behind most of the music, a political message, a message of resistance and pride. And I thought it'd be really important to share that story because when I learned about it, it really impacted me.
There's an inspiration to writing the show. Mm-hmm. Where did it come from, would you say?
I was playing in a bar in Paris, an Irish pub in Paris.
Yeah.
It was funny. And, I used to play mini bars. And, a couple of guys came up to me. They're like, hey, Bob Marley, because I have dreadlocks. Yeah. I don't look anything like him. And they're like, hey, can you do the Buffalo Soldier song? And one of the guys had he had a reggae hat on that had the fake dreads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, okay. And, I'm used to doing it. And this time when I did it, they were all singing along and they were drunk and just having fun. And I realized that they had no idea what the song was about, right? They had no idea what they were singing. And so I thought, man, maybe it'd be good if I kind of put a little show together. And so I put a 30-minute show together and tried it at the Free Fringe in Edinburgh. Yeah, and I just tested it there and people really liked it. And they said, hey, you should make this a full show.
I mean, what you're describing here seems like a misunderstanding of reggae. Why do you think that exists in popular culture?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a multi-layered answer. I will say that, mostly people, when they hear the word reggae, I think the next thing they think is maybe weed, right? Like smoking weed, and you think hippies and people undressed well and bad dreadlocks. You know what I mean?
You're describing things that have negative connotations.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's mostly negative. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. A lot of people, it's about feeling good.
Complicated.
Complicated.
Maybe is the word.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely feel good. Good vibes. Everything. Irie. Everything's gonna be all right. But there's more. There's more. And the more is so good.
In that example or the story that you were telling of when you were asked to sing the song, you were given the hat with the fake dreads, and then you started singing it, and everyone sang with you. What were you expecting, or what was it about that moment that you didn't see that you were expecting to see instead?
Well, so it's actually, I wasn't given the hat. One of the guys was wearing the hat.
He was
wearing the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's when it kind of clicked for me. He's wearing the hat. I saw the fake dreads, under the hat on him, and I was like, oh, wow, he's really disconnected to what in Buffalo Soldier, that song is about Jamaicans trying to survive it after slavery, and find their way throughout America and the Caribbean, and we're soldiers in the U.S. Army, So such serious lyrics in that song. Yeah.
So you take this experience, you start working on the show, you test it. How did you end up with this final version?
Tested it. People really liked it, so I went back to the drawing board, made it a bit longer. I have a great friend and dramaturg. His name is Ins Choi from Kim's Convenience, and he's awesome. And he helped me work with the show and like to sharpen it and get the story right where we want it. And it's been a process. I've been working on it for the last couple of years and evolving it.
What kind of feedback have you gotten so far from audience members, from friends who are in the know? What have you heard so far?
Honestly, mostly very, very good feedback. People
is that surprising?
Yeah, I was. For me, it was. I was scared when I first started doing it. A lot of positive feedback. People really like it. I've gotten some really good reviews. The Winnipeg Free Press gave me a great review. I really appreciate that. One of my favorite quotes from a review was that doctors should, give people this as an antidepressant. My show.
How did that make you feel when you read that?
It really touched me. I was teary at it. So
is that what you were hoping people would get from watching your show?
Yeah. It's I do dive into some of those heavier, darker waters, right? But I do want it to feel like a warm hug and like everything is going to be all right and we're all together.
There may be folks who don't know much about reggae or Bob Marley. Mm-hmm. What do you hope they'll take away from this show?
That there's more to it than smoking weed. That there's layers to it, and that I really hope that they will be more interested in reggae music, but more than that, in us.
Your next stop is with an off-Broadway show in New York City.
Yeah.
Do you ever imagine the show would be this successful? Because that's like the big thing, right?
Yeah, man. When that happened, I'm still processing it. That's next month, and I'm still not even. My head's not there. It's I used to. I love New York, and I used to dream about being on off-Broadway. Walking there, like, will I ever be here one day? And it's just
New York
crazy.
Can be pretty scary.
Scary. So,
and yet here you are.
Here I am. Well, not there yet.
That's a month from now.
Yeah, so, but I'm really, really excited about that chance to share the work there in New York. Yeah.
Dwayne Forrest in conversation with CBC's Faith Flundell yesterday. Dwayne's a playwright and performer of Bob Marley, How Reggae Changed the World. You can catch his show this week in Winnipeg at the Tom Hendry Warehouse. It runs today through the 13th of December. This week marks 1 year since Bashar al-Assad left Syria in the fall of his regime. Since then, the United Nations says over 1 million people have returned to Syria from neighboring countries, and almost 2 million who were initially displaced have gone back to their home communities. There's a lot of challenge with this. Joey Hanna's here to talk about it, head of the office in Montreal for the UN Refugee Agency in Canada. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us to talk about this. So what main obstacles for those who are returning to Syria?
Well, there are many obstacles, but allow me to focus on the two that Syrians themselves mention most often. The first is the massive destruction of homes and essential infrastructure. I spent nearly 3 months in Syria this year, and I saw neighborhoods that were reduced to rubble, roads, schools, hospitals, many that were in terrible condition. So when families return, they often find that their homes are destroyed, that they were looted, that they're just impossible to live in. And at the UNHCR, we support these returning families with fixing their homes, either with minor repairs or cash assistance for repairs. And these small changes, like repairing broken windows or replacing a doorknob or fixing a hole in the ceiling, well, they can give Syrians a sense of security and a place to truly call home. Now, the second big challenge is the lack of jobs and the lack of, employment opportunities. Syrians, they're just like you, they're just like me. They want to work, they want to send their kids to school, they want to live with dignity. And yet today, still 90% of the population survives thanks to humanitarian aid, which is unfortunately critically underfunded. So people need employment, they need functioning school system, they need opportunities to rebuild their lives and go back on the recovery track after 14 years of conflict.
What areas of the country are not yet safe for people to return to?
Well, I mean, not all areas are safe. The security situation in Syria remains extremely fragile and volatile. And, it can vary from a province to another and even from a neighborhood to the next. Um, but also, different individuals may face different risks depending on their background, on their religion, on their ethnicity. And despite what, people might think, Syria is truly a mosaic. It's a country of, different cultures, of different faiths, and this diversity is part of its richness, but it can also means that, safety conditions are not the same everywhere, and unfortunately for everyone. And this is why, at the UNHCR, we have been calling upon states to refrain from forcing Syrians to return back to Syria because the conditions are not stable enough for what we call large scale repatriation. So we're not promoting mass returns, but we are facilitating and helping and supporting those who make the courageous choice, the voluntary choice to go back to Syria at the moment.
So what is the call from the international community to promote the security you're talking about for Syrians to be able to return?
Well, I think there's a real chance, to move from fragility to stability. And the first thing we need from the international community at the moment is concrete, is targeted, and it is large scale investments and, in development and reconstruction. And that means housing. That means, basic services like schools, like healthcare system, especially in areas where people are returning. The people in Syria, they don't want to rely on emergency aid forever. They want to be self-reliant. They want to be autonomous. So this will mean joint efforts from states, from governments, from development banks, and even the private sector. They all should, act decisively to translate the historic opportunity that we have in Syria into concrete support and concrete recovery for this country.
What are the particular needs of children that are going back with their families for those that are returning?
Mm. They're huge. 14 years of war, it has had a devastating impact on children and on education in Syria. Over 7,000 schools have been damaged or destroyed, and UNICEF estimates that 2.45 million children are out of school and need of education support. And just to give your listeners a clearer picture of why supporting humanitarian initiatives, it matters at the moment, allow me to share a personal story. UNHCR in Syria delivers its life-saving aid through 70 community centers across the country. And these centers, they act as hubs where people can access, the essentials like blankets, like a mattress, like tents, like water or food, but also services like education and literacy classes. And I visited one of these centers in Daraa, that's near the Jordanian border at the south. And I met there with young girls and women who were learning and reading Arabic for the first time. And when I asked them why these classes mattered, why they were showing up, well, they all said the same thing. Education means autonomy for them. It means being able to understand paperwork and sign legal documents and read a book and help, children with their homework. So education is a lifeline for many people. It will give children a sense of normalcy. It will give, children hope.
So rebuilding some of the schools are going to be critical for the future of those kids and for their families. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Joey. Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
Joey Hanna with us live, head of the office in Montreal for the UN Refugee Agency of Canada, talking about Syrians who are returning. Applicant wanted. That is for the top job representing Canada in Washington and dealing with the Trump White House. Kirsten Hillman, Canada's current ambassador to the United States, as you may have heard in the news this week, has said that she is stepping down in the new year. For more on what she accomplished in her more than 8 years as ambassador and the skill set needed for her successor, Colin Robertson is with us, former Canadian diplomat and fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Hey there, Colin.
Good to be with you again, Marcy.
So I guess let's start with Hillman and her legacy. What did she bring to the job?
Well, she was an experienced diplomat before she went down to Washington as the deputy chief of mission. Her main accomplishment prior to getting to Washington was she was our chief negotiator for what we now call the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, basically that trade arrangement with Japan, Australia, and the countries in the Indo-Pacific with whom we want to do even more trade. Prime Minister, of course, having been there just recently.
We know a little bit about the role itself, if you pull back from how Hellman did the role, because of course former Premier Gary Dewar was U.S. ambassador to Canada.
Very successfully.
Yeah, so Canadian ambassador rather to the U.S. I flipped that around backwards. But Hillman was sort of unique because I understand she was a civil servant. You know, Dewar was a former politician. What kind of a person might we need in 2025 to deal with the States?
Well, I think as you put out, Kirsten was particular, but she did have political savvy. That's the first requirement of the job. Recently, we've tended to look to those with political experience. Washington is such a political town, especially now with Donald Trump, and not just Gary, but also Frank McKenna, former premier from New Brunswick, Dave McNaughton, who was predecessor to Kirsten, had been chief of staff to Premier McGuinty and Foreign Minister Don Jamieson, and more importantly, ran the Trudeau campaign in 2015 in Ontario. And then there was Michael Wilson, who'd been a cabinet minister in the Mulroney government for Stephen Harper. So the political skills, I think, are really important. So I think that the Prime Minister will be looking for somebody who's got that, but also in whom the Prime Minister has full confidence, because it's almost like a cabinet minister in Washington, given the importance of the relationship with three-quarters of our trade still destined to the United States, our critical defense alliance, that with the United States. All of this stuff is up for grabs right now.
And now they're talking about potentially, the U.S. is potentially talking about remaking CUSMA or getting out of it. And the issue with the border this week, talking again about perhaps some social media feeds being checked if, Canadians or others are coming into the country. I mean, we're in a time where there's political connections, but there's also a certain amount of, I guess, real understanding, like, I don't know if I want to call it psychological understanding or deal making, or I think will it be more difficult to fill the role now, or how strategic do we have to be as a country to figure out who to choose?
Well, I think the Prime Minister probably has somebody in mind. And again, it's got to be somebody that the Prime Minister has full confidence in, because that individual has to have the ability to pick up the phone and get through to the Prime Minister pretty quickly, given the importance, as you pointed out, of the relationship in all its facets. But particularly important because the Prime Minister wants that individual to be a lead in the negotiation of a new economic and security framework. So that covers, again, three-quarters of our trade and our principal defense arrangements, which have become much more important in recent years, in part because the United States, and if you look at the new national security strategy Mr. Trump just brought forward, he's not terribly interested in alliances. Mm-hmm. That has real implications for us.
What names are being floated right now as possible successors?
Well, the only name I've seen that Bloomberg has put forward is Mark Wiseman, who ran the Canadian Pension Fund, is a good friend of Mark Carney's, and who Mr. Carney named to the Canada-U.S. Advisory Council some months ago. So that would be somebody who's got confidence of the Prime Minister, a successful business person, and may well fit well in the milieu that he would be going, or she would be going down to, that is working with Donald Trump and his entourage, many of whom, of course, have had a lot of business experience.
Just returning to Kirsten Hillman, what do you think her legacy is? Like, what were the top accomplishments that you're thinking about this morning?
Well, I read an interview that she gave the other day in which she said that she was in many ways most proud of what she did in terms of securing the release of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, and that's validated by Michael Kovrig. And I was aware of that, but I hadn't focused on that. I think of her very much as a really accomplished trade policy expert. What she did with the renegotiation of the NAFTA, which became the CUSMA, and how she's been stick handling all of the various trade disputes, steel, aluminum, forest products, auto parts. That's her métier, but she had a full range of things to deal with, and she personally identified the work she did to, as they say, liberate Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor.
On the other side of the border, of course, the U.S. counterpart to the position we're talking about here is Pete Hoekstra. What have you been noticing about how he's been talking about Canada at the moment in our relationship?
Well, I think Pete Hoekstra is very much reflective of his boss. He's very good. I've heard him several times now deliver the Make America Great Again message on behalf of Mr. Trump. What I'm less certain about is he conveying back to the Trump administration what he's hearing from Canadian premiers, Canadian prime minister, and Canadian ministers. That's a vital piece of the job, whoever is an ambassador. And I certainly think he's on transmit, but is he on receive? I'm not sure.
What a good line. Colin, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Colin Robertson is a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute and a former Canadian diplomat. Well, in our community, music, of course, is seasonal for the holidays, but so are markets. There's so many around. There's wonderful makers in our community, and we're about to talk about one that will include music, jewelry, bannock, and more. The 4th annual Pitamino Muskiki Indigenous Handmade Winter Market is on from tomorrow, December 12th to the 14th. It's at Via Rail Union Station on Main Street. All of the artists are Indigenous, and all of the products are handmade. Shauna Fontaine is up early and on Zoom with us, one of the 3 founders of the event. She's Anishinaabe from Saking First Nation. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Why do you think the event's been so successful? You guys are entering your 4th year.
Oh, it's been a fantastic 4 years. It's hard to believe that it's been 4. I think it's been very successful because people have continuously showed up for the Indigenous makers who participate in the market. And then the makers themselves are continuously sharing, and they also have their own following in community who come out to support them and show their love to their artwork.
How many Indigenous artists are part of it this year?
This year we have 121 makers in total, or Indigenous vendors who are participating over the 3 days.
And I was mentioning everything is made by hand. So talk a little bit to us about why that's important and how that connects to culture.
Yeah, I think in most craft shows, that's a really critical component is, consumers want to know that the item that they're purchasing is made from hand, is made by hand. And so in this case, they're Indigenous makers, whether they're doing food items, whether it be microgreens or marshmallow squares to bannock, that's made with hand or grown by hand, to artwork, which is like beadwork or textile or paintings. That's all done with the heart and heart medicine. So it's done from a place of love, from spirit, and it really captures that, and it atones to storytelling and cultural continuity amongst Indigenous nations.
You use the word medicine. In fact, Pitamino Muskiki, medicine is in the name of your market, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It means brings good medicine, and that the market in itself is bringing good medicine to the people.
Talk about more of what's going to be there as well. You mentioned some of the different types of items, but how big of a range is there with 120 artists of what people might find?
Oh, everything from, as I said, food and baking to hot food. We do utilize the cafe there as well. And we have a food cart outside to things like beadwork and jewelry and earrings. And of course, there's always tons of earrings, skirts and ribbon skirts and sweaters and stickers and buttons, candles and bath and body and wellness products. It's literally something for everybody in that entire space.
You're also doing a bit of sort of a side event as well that is part of this. You're having a toy drive for Nijimakwa School, I understand. Tell us a bit about how that will work and what the need is. If people are going to the market, should they bring a toy?
Yeah, we really like to partner with community organizations to be able to make a direct impact to the community at large. And so this is one of the ways that we can do that this year, is to support the Nijimakwa School. So we're doing a toy drive on behalf of them, and they will have representatives attending as well over the 3 days. And so we ask anybody who's coming, if you can, not only support the Indigenous artists that are there and the makers, but also support some children this year and bring an unwrapped toy to the toy drive. And we're looking for school-age toys, and particular things like crafts and artwork pieces that kids can take home with them and do with love.
Behind you, actually, if people are watching on Zoom this morning, they can see sort of a beautiful room full of all kinds of things on the shelves. And I can't help but notice your earrings. You're known for making your earrings, so I'm curious if those ones are ones that you've made.
Yes, these are. And yeah, I'm in my studio right now. So in addition to running the market, I'm also a maker, an Anishinaabe girl. And I have, of course, my storefront in Winnipeg, but I've been making earrings for 20 plus years. And so a little bit of my chaos behind me, and you definitely want to look over there right now, as it's, really being all creative right now in this studio.
Yeah, I always love when you use the birch bark and such. It looks like the ones you're wearing might have some of that. Your shop is on Lilac, I think. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, it's at 165
Yeah.
Lilac.
What's it been like for you transitioning to having a storefront? Because a lot of makers and a lot of the entrepreneurs like yourself that we see at these markets are stepping into those spaces. And it can be difficult, right? It's a whole different thing. So what's that been like for you just to look at your business in a bigger way?
I always felt like I can't be successful as a maker, as an artist myself, if my relatives aren't. So when I opened the space, I really wanted to ensure that it had the ability to be able to carry other artists' work. And so I feel proud that I'm able to do that. And I think right now I've got about 65 plus makers work in my shop. So that really means a lot to me to be able to do that. It's a lot of work, and it's hard. I have a very small team of people, but really dedicated people who help me out. Um, it is a challenge. Sometimes the challenge is still getting people to come out, and especially coming out to support small business. So, as Manitobans, I think we need to always remember that, don't forget the small businesses out there. Of course, there's lots of shopping malls and corporations we can go shop at, but, don't forget the small businesses. We really count on your support, especially during the holiday season.
And what's the support been like for small businesses in Manitoba, and maybe specific support for Indigenous businesses in Manitoba? I know we've done a few interviews about that on the show, and Charcuterie, I've had her on. We've talked a little bit about her business and how that's grown, also a storefront in kind of the same area right there, and what that meant. I'm wondering whether or not we're seeing more supports come up for Indigenous entrepreneurs that want to have storefronts.
I think that there is. I think that there's definitely a need. There's a need for it, and those that are doing this right now, like we're filling a gap that's existed for a very long time. But it's still a bit of a challenge, I think, in getting people to understand that they don't have to be Indigenous to support an Indigenous owned business. Just because I'm an Indigenous person doesn't mean that non-Indigenous people can't come and support the shop. So I think that is one of the challenges that I think we still face. But otherwise, I think for the most part, a lot of people do want to come. They want to support it. They want to check it out. They want to ask questions. And some people are afraid to ask questions, but I encourage it, and I encourage it both at my store, but even at the market. Ask folks if you're not sure of that item, if you could have it. So just ask. It doesn't hurt to ask, and we're always willing to answer those questions.
All right, this weekend, Via Rail Station starts tomorrow, runs to the 14th. Tickets at the door, Shauna?
It's actually free admission. So we also have some music, lively music, a photo booth, and Santa and the Grinch might make some appearances.
Even better. Thank you very much for being with us up early and telling us more about this year's edition.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Shauna Fontaine with us live on Zoom, one of the founders of Pitu Minu Muskiki Indigenous Handmade Winter Market. Free admission, December 12th to 14th at Via Rail Union Station. And if you want more information, just check them out on social media. Next on the show, there may not be snow in Trinidad and Tobago, but the holiday spirit is vibrant. For the first time, the Winnipeg Philharmonic Choir is merging traditional with tropical. The High Life Steel Orchestra is going to join the choir for their Christmas concert, which is happening on Sunday. CBC Manitoba community reporter Shanley Vidal was at their first rehearsal.
We're very excited that we were able to bring the band here into the choir to be a part of our Christmas concert and to bring some Caribbean flair into the mix. So my name is Kayleen Blackwood. I've been a part of the Philharmonic Choir for about 4 to 5 years. I also have the privilege of playing in the High Life Steel Orchestra. A lot of times when people don't know a lot about, especially these instruments, it's kind of usually people tend to get very hesitant about it. And I've been lucky enough that a lot of times I've mentioned that people have always been like super supportive and excited and encouraging about bringing them in. And I'm very fortunate that I get to be in a choir that not only like accepts my culture, but allows me to celebrate it with them.
She said, "My brother and my sister, they'll play too. We can play with you this Christmas." Hello, my name is Arlene Petkow, and I'm the chair of the program committee of the Winnipeg Philharmonic Choir. It fits so well with our theme of Let There Be Peace on Earth. So it's a global perspective, a diverse selection of music, and bringing joy to the world at this time of year.
for sure in the Caribbean, obviously it's hot and it's nice and warm over there. So a lot of times you do hear a lot of more like gospel-like Caribbean carols, which tend to be a lot more upbeat and kind of calypso based. Or then you can also take like kind of the carols that we know here and make it Caribbean, just arrange it, change the rhythm to suit. And then like usually a lot of the songs tend to be, you know, a lot more about like Jesus, very much focused on that, and less more about the season, right? Because you don't have any snow there. So
There's Patapan, there's Jamaican Noel. That's a tiny little baby born in Bethlehem. So rhythm is a driving force in these pieces. We've never sung with pan drums before, so of course it's a question of balance. You know, what does the back row sound like, the men, the women, and then of course the steel pan. So we have to find that sweet spot, literally, with the pan drums to get the perfect balance.
I think it'll be interesting because the way we learn music is much different from the way the choir learns music. The choir learns music through like sheet music, having words in front of them, and with our instruments we learn everything by ear. So all we've been doing is kind of writing down notes. We kind of do lots of repetition. I play one thing and then my siblings play another, and that's how we learn the pieces. So we'll just be mainly able to kind of watch what our conductor's doing versus reading notes. We don't read notes, and then be able to hopefully add in some dynamics and kind of follow what the choir is doing and things like that. Lots of listening for sure.
I think our eyes will come off the page, which our conductor would be very happy about. I think we will just be smiling ear to ear. I think our heads will swivel over to the pan drums, and I think it'll be a moment of discovery at the beginning, and then again it'll be pure enjoyment.
Christmas with the Phil, Let There Be Peace on Earth, is happening on Sunday if you want to check it out at the Crescent Arts Centre, 3 o'clock till 7 o'clock. Students, by the way, from 2 local schools are also going to be joining in and singing in the show. So the Ovi Jewett Community School Choir is going to be there for the afternoon show, and then the École Laura Secord Honor Choir will be there for the evening performance at 7 o'clock. So there's 2 shows, 3 and 7 as mentioned. Thanks to CBC Manitoba's community reporter Channelie Vidal and videographer Travis Golby for bringing us that item from their practice. Well, yesterday, outside liquor stores, some of them were very busy, busier than usual. It's because American booze was allowed back on the shelves for a limited time. Manitoba Liquor and Lottery says $500,000 of U.S. liquor sales will go to charities around the province. CBC's Matt Humphrey spoke to some shoppers.
$1,594.
Sorry, how much was that?
$1,594.
Holy moly. So what'd you buy?
A lot of American wines, a lot of California wines. A little bit of bourbon, some vodka, some Tito's, a little bit of a mixture, but we're shopping for 3 families, so a lot of California Reds.
So people put in their orders to you to go and get it?
Yeah, we were the Sherpas today.
So why are you here today? Like when did the plan come together for you?
Really, whenever we heard the profits were going to go to charity, that was a big instigator. I really wanted to support that initiative, and we've missed the California Reds actually for the last little while, so it was a good opportunity to restock some shelves just in time for Christmas.
Do you hope the province does something like this again?
Absolutely. Great initiative. Anytime they can do better to support charities and local food banks and things like that, it's a great way to bring Manitobans together and support a worthy cause.
Can I have your name, please, sir?
My name is John Creelman.
What'd you get today?
I got my husband bourbon for his old fashions.
Yeah, and you can't get bourbon for a long time now.
We're there in Alberta for holidays, and we did get some then, but we need enough for about a year's worth. So, but if I know that it's going to charity, then I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, how did you find out that American booze would be on the shelves again?
When did we hear it? My husband told me, probably online, I think it was. We heard about it yesterday, and I was here at 5 minutes to 10 this morning, and the lineup was out the door already. So.
And so it's all for the old fashioned, specifically bourbon.
I got a bottle of red wine too for Christmas Eve.
So how have you guys been doing without the American liquor?
Well, like I said, we've just been collecting it and saving it from the summer. So we've just having not a lot of things to drink, but yeah, it's good.
And the reason that people felt good about doing it is because this is stuff the province already had bought that was in a warehouse, and now the proceeds are going.
Exactly.
So what do you think of that?
in that sense, I'm okay with it because I'm just I'm glad to be supporting the community and charity. So that's the only reason why I'm here.
Would you want the province to do something like this again?
Yeah, as long as we're not getting it imported from the United States. Yeah, whatever we have on the on the shelves, sell it. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Can I have your name, please?
Larisha.
Can I ask what you bought today?
Bourbon and Tito's.
What were you missing? You were missing out on the bourbon?
Yes, my husband was.
So how did you hear that you could buy American liquor?
Just TV, radio.
Is your husband going to be happy to get bourbon again, you think?
Yes, but we've been also ordering from Calgary, so we're not paying shipping this time.
And would all the proceeds go to charity? How do you feel about that?
That's a great idea. Doesn't go back to Trump, so I'm happy.
If the province did something like this again, would you be happy?
Yeah, for sure. If it's helping others, why not?
Can I have your name, please?
Alyssa Mashenter.
Carol Ryrie. Proceeds are going for charity.
Precisely.
And there is absolutely no way we'd be putting a cent into the American economy otherwise.
Was it busy in there?
It was super organized, not busy. They've got everything in certain areas. You line up, your wine that you want, you get it. The biggest is the lineup at the end to pay.
So what'd you get?
Meiomi, Pinot Noir.
So it was mostly wine?
Yes.
It was the California. Would you be supportive if the province were to do something like this again?
Well, aren't they clearing out everything right now? Yeah. I'm hoping this is a one-off, and we have a lot of Canadian wines that are excellent, so we've been enjoying those lately. Although we don't even drink a lot, so Christmas gifts.
Mike Prescott. I bought white wine, Carlo Rossi out of California. The Canadian wine didn't taste the same, so I wanted to get something for Christmas special, and I said, you know what, I'll get 2 bottles. And
would you be supportive if the province did something like this again?
yes, I would. At least we know where some of it's going.
Matt Humphrey from CBC outside Liquor Mart yesterday talking to some shoppers. According to a spokesperson for Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, the top-selling products were top-shelf bourbons and California wines. The spokesperson said, though, they won't have exact sales figures until the new year. I know around town when you order an old-fashioned, there's been all these versions, trying to make it up with whiskey or rye, figure out how it tastes. People have been kind of adding smoky flavors. They're kind of making new fashions, but they don't quite taste the same without bourbon. So no surprise that was one of the top-selling liquors. But as mentioned, all the proceeds from the U.S. liquor that they already had in stock that they put back out in the shelves in Manitoba will go to charities around our province. Well, it has been more than 6 months since wildfires raged in northern Manitoba, with Flin Flon being one of the areas impacted. Greg Ellingson and his wife Debbie were evacuated from their home on May 30th on Sally's Beach Road. Imagine you leave and the next day their house was gone. Only their garage was still standing after the fire swept through, which is a critical part of their story as we're about to hear. Today, the Ellingsons are deciding whether to move away or to rebuild. We've had part of their story in the news this morning, but Greg joins us from Flin Flon to talk more about the details here. Good morning.
Good morning.
So to go back for a moment, Greg, before the fire took your home, what kind of conversations were you having as it started to move closer and you were deciding what to do?
Well, we were watching it like everybody else close, but then it was heading northeast away from us. And we thought, actually, when we did evacuate, like the city of Flin Flon went on Wednesday and we got evacuated the Friday. And we thought it was because the highway was going to be closed because it was threatening the highway south of us. And we thought, okay, that's what it'll be. And then we were kind of in shock to find out that the fire had turned so fast. I talked to one of the firemen, and when I did come back, and he was here fighting it, and he said that it turned and come back at them so fast it was just unbelievable. So we still sometimes in disbelief.
Yeah, how could you not be? I mean, the next day then your house went. When we were in Flin Flon recently, just, last month, one of the things that was really haunting was someone was sharing with us, texts that were coming from firefighters in moments. And I don't know if it was particularly when you were talking about in your situation on Sally's Beach Road, but somebody was talking about, texts started coming in saying, no, leave, like we could die. Like this is how fast things move, just devastating. What was it like to return to your property after you evacuated?
Well, I think the one thing that did help is we were away for almost a month, I guess, and so we had time for it to sink in. But still, your heart just dropped when we walked onto the property and seen the wreckage, nothing left but metal, twisted and burnt, where our house used to be. and how stuff around the house didn't seem to be touched. Like my boat was sitting down front, and it basically had a little bit of a burn mark on the front, but to see that pile of trash, it was gut-wrenching, I guess.
You shared photos with CBC. If people are listening and watching the show here on YouTube this morning, we're seeing that. And as you say, just some things untouched, including your garage is still standing beside the pile of debris. Tell me why that's significant.
Well, it did become our living quarters for the first 2 months. We've chuckled about it because we have an old outhouse that was built like 60, 70 years ago, I guess, back in 63, and my wife was always after me to tear it down, and I wouldn't. And here we ended up using it for 2 months while we lived in the garage. So we kind of chuckle about that. But it was important that we, I don't know what we would have done at that time, but we had made up our mind we're going to try and live at least for the summer and stay close to home and live in the garage. And we're thankful it was still there.
Well, what did the property that you lost mean to you and your family? Like, I guess the house that you lost, how big was it, and what kind of a place was it?
It was about 1,200 square feet. We had a hot tub just off the deck and whatnot in it. My parents had built the original in 1963 when my brother and I were just young, and then when Debbie and I retired in 2010, we tore the original down and built just a modest home that would suit us, and would have room for our kids and our grandkids to come and visit and stay, and that's what it meant. It's 3 generations of memories.
Yeah, overlooking the water. It's beautiful up there, really, in the middle of the trees. So you were living in the garage 2 months during the summer. Where have you been staying for the winter months right now?
Well, we were very fortunate. A neighbor of ours, who's actually 3 doors down, has a cottage that wasn't being used much, so she offered to rent it to us. So we were so lucky that we're close to home. We can walk down to our garage. We have heat in the garage that we can put on, and we can go back there and tinker and do whatever just to be close.
So as I mentioned, there's some moments in our lives, right? I mean, where you don't plan on having to think about this, but now you have to figure out what you're going to do. What are you weighing and considering regarding rebuilding, Greg?
Well, the first thing is how much money are we going to get towards building? We're hearing horror stories. Well, you can see the price of lumber, what it's like and whatnot. So it'll be all based on if we get enough to rebuild. We should hear something, we've been told, probably this week. And then we'll go from there. Like, if we can't rebuild, we're probably going to relocate. We're not sure. We discuss this probably weekly, where you want to go and what do you want to do. And we just haven't made up our mind yet. We've got to wait and see.
If you do relocate, what do you mean? Where would you go? Like, would you stay north?
Well, we love the north, born and raised here. Our first choice would probably be to stay north if we could find something, reasonable to buy or to rent, I guess. We don't know. But other than that, we do have family in Saskatchewan we may go to, close to them.
If you're able to stay in Manitoba and rebuild around Flin Flon there, what are you ironing out with insurance right now? What are premiums like? You're waiting for some information there, I understand.
Yeah, the numbers for the building. We talked to our head person last week. Actually, she phoned and she said she's hoping to have some numbers. She's been on them about getting numbers for rebuilding. And that we've just been waiting. And part of the problem, we've been part of the problem too, like our contents. We've been slow in the contents. We just have a little bit left to do, and we'll get the rest of that done. And then our end of it is all done.
Got it.
But,
Are you still paying, like, how does the insurance, I understand, the information I have is you're still paying premiums on a house that's not even there?
That's correct. That's correct. And they went up significantly, but we're still, that's what I went into the insurance office and I said, well, there's no house there. Do I still pay? And they said, unfortunately, yes. Our insurance come due in October, and we had to pay it.
What does they went up significantly mean? What were you paying, and what did you pay in October?
Oh boy, I can't remember the exact number, but I would say it probably went up 40%. I'm just guessing.
Oh, yeah, okay. You have a lot on your plate then, financially. You're still waiting for answers, obviously, about compensation, about insurance, about rebuild, about input. If someone's in an area that's at risk for wildfires, what would your advice be? What do you wish maybe that you had, I don't know, had prepared for? None of us can imagine this happening, but in hindsight here.
Well, in hindsight, I did have a fire pump and fire hose and nozzle, and I would hose down our property every day. But I would recommend sprinkler systems. We have some people here that have started a Fire Smart program, and they've got some really good information.
And beyond that, obviously, that'll be part of your future proofing, hopefully, should you stay in that area, which could be prone to fires. I'm wondering what you would do also in terms of in insurance and such in preparation.
Well, we don't know.
Would you have taken? Did you have pictures? Or did you have, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. We were getting ready to go, and I was hosing the yard down, and Debbie stuck her head out the door, and she said, "We just got evacuated. Get some pictures before we go." So I run around with my phone taking as many pictures as I could. I should have taken more, but I would advise anybody, whether you're facing a fire, wildfires or not, have pictures and put them in a safe place, because they really help with insurance.
Yeah, what a thing you've been through here. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and we'll have to follow up and see where you land and whether or not, as you said, you stay not just where you are in Flin Flon, but in Manitoba. Take care, you two. I can hear Debbie in the background there. So thank you very much for being with us today and sharing your story, Greg.
Well, thank you, and you have a good day.
You too. Greg Ellingson, Flin Flon resident, he and his wife Debbie lost their home to wildfire this summer. If you want to read more about their story and what they're weighing, cbc.ca/Manitoba. It's very interesting. I've done a lot of interviews over the years about flood insurance, about the dikes or the berms that you might build. Aftermath of a fire and insurance and what you weigh is very different situation. You can check out more online.